We light this chalice for fathers and fathering, to celebrate those who have taken on the task of nurturing a young one, baby, child, or youth into adulthood, to celebrate those who have nourished the light of truth and compassion in growing minds and hearts, to celebrate those who have committed time, money, energy to the growth of others in the world. We light this chalice to celebrate and hold dear this flame of love. And we will now invite Ada Miller and Gretchen are going to be leading the hymn number 1008, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place. And we're invited to join in.
This looks like Ada, but actually it's Lisa Helen.
Our reading today is a simple poem by Amy Maddox. She wrote it. She wrote it when she was 16 years old. He prayed. It wasn't my religion. He ate. It wasn't what I ate. He spoke. It wasn't my language. He dressed. It wasn't what I wore. He took my hand. It wasn't the color of mine. But when he laughed, it was how I laughed. And when he cried, it was how I cried. I hear so many people who have lived among people of diverse culture say that their lives are richer. And many business leaders tell us that decision-making and progress towards satisfying accomplishments are more creative and effective when there is cultural diversity in the workforce. and some quotes from some research I did from Forbes Media, from Indeed, and Halt International Business School. Things they've said like, research shows that diverse teams are better at making decisions 87% of the time over non-diverse teams. Diverse teams offer broader perspectives and bring more information to the table. I suspect the world will be a happier place when acceptance of and appreciation for diversity is the norm. And that's how Amy envisioned it. I'll read it again. He prayed, it wasn't my religion. He ate, it wasn't what I ate. He spoke, it wasn't my language. He dressed, it wasn't what I wore. He took my hand, it wasn't the color of mine. And when he laughed, it was how I laughed. And when he cried, it was how I cried. When I hear this poem, I feel the warmth of love vibrating inside of me. My heart swells to think that a young teenager nurtured within herself an openness to cultural diversity. This gives me hope for future generations. Besides parents guiding them into this level of openness, could it be that the generation they were born into has a higher appreciation for diversity than past generations? I hope so. Such an appreciation was minimal during my youthful years. I remember when I was 16, my mother, who did her work as a volunteer at the local YMCA, had a black man over to the house for a social visit. Up to this point, I'd rarely engaged with any people of color. I never saw them in my neighborhood, though there was one black male in my senior high school class. So I felt awkward with the newness of this situation. But at the same time, I realized for the first time that I even had any such fear of getting this close to a black man. In my later years, I would reflect upon the fact that I grew up with unfamiliarity and uncertainty, a prejudice, or more aptly, a fear of people of color. There's no obvious reason why. My parents didn't teach it to me. That's just the way it was. Unfamiliarity and fear run hand in hand, as we clearly see in today's polarized society. Contrary to the awkwardness I felt, I also felt a sense of intrigue. I was glad that my mom was exposing me for the first time to a mindset that extended beyond a cultural norm of racism, though I didn't know that word at the time. I trusted her. I trusted her desire to engage socially with this black man. She knew him from her work environment. He was an administrator. Perhaps I trusted her so readily because it was easy to see why she might be less inclined to prejudice, perhaps than others. She came from a Jewish family. The boyfriend she married was from a Catholic family. She had to play by the rules of those religious games. While mom wasn't raised in or nourished by her Jewish religion, she had to deny it anyway and adopt the Catholic religion that my dad grew up in. This was a simple but powerful lesson for me. I saw at that time religion as a source of conflict. Religion separated these people from those people. But I also came to realize that my mom's decision to convert was, in essence, an act of love. Spending a lifetime with my dad was way more important to her than any religion. I'm sure that Amy Maddox was feeling love when she wrote her poem. It seems that her childlike heart was not obscured by the stereotypical mindset of a teenager filled with angst and self-centeredness, at least not when it came to relating to other people. How did she reach this level of compassion and appreciation for humanity? Who guided her to embrace the depth of her heart? Who were her most influential teachers? I don't know. And my research didn't tell me much about who Amy was or why she was drawn to express herself in this poem. But as you heard before, I did learn that she was just 16 years old when she wrote it. So I began taking a deeper listen to what Amy was saying. I was drawn to the fact that Amy begins her poem with, "He prayed." That's much deeper than a mere physical difference one might point out when speaking about the differences among people. And when Amy speaks about the difference in skin color, she doesn't just list it as another difference. No, she begins by stating an interaction, a sharing. He took my hand. After making these observations, reading between the lines, I decided to look even deeper. What else is hidden in her words? And so to help me dive in, I followed a few prompts that were used in some of the narrative medicine sessions that I participate at the hospital where I work. It can be a heart-opening experience as facilitators guide us into further discovery of what people are saying. And you will have an opportunity to grasp this experience later in the service. But right now, Marion is going to guide you through the first of two activities we have for you.
Good morning. The first segment will be Lectio Divina. And Lectio Divina is an ancient monastic practice that dates back to the 6th century. We will use a modified version because the poem is our sacred text rather than the Bible. Reverend Jen did this exercise, this kind of exercise, a few weeks ago, as you may recall. You have been provided with paper and a card and writing implement by the ushers. Is there anybody who does not have this? Thank you. We'll pass those out. Keep your hands sort of up. Being that it's a card, I hope that's a writing surface that is. We've got 2 here. 3. Okay. All right. Thank you. And again, he prayed, "It was not my religion." He ate, "It wasn't what I ate." He spoke, "It wasn't my language." He dressed, "It wasn't what I wore." He took my hand, "It wasn't the color of mine." But when he laughed, it was how I laughed. And when he cried, it was how I cried. The responses to this poem can be deeply personal, So jot down a single word or short phrase on your card that has intrigued you or elicited an emotional response. Write then, jot it down quickly without too much thought. You're thinking too much. So now, after you've jotted your word or phrase, write a note then about your reaction and why you were moved. Take this personal reflection home with you to consider further and possibly to prompt discussion with others.
Robert asked me to provide a musical interlude. And I decided that maybe one of the best things to do would be to share a piece that I stitched together. It's kind of a pastiche that I had played during a worship service down at St. John Episcopal when they had an art exhibit of modern iconography. And the thing that struck me about the icons was that each one of them was a new way of looking. You were meant to see something new when you looked at them. So I leaned heavily on some music by Philip Glass, which is called Metamorphosa. He wrote two of them. This is the second one, and it's just a tiny little excerpt because I was given a time frame. So it's a little bit of music by Philip Glass, which I pre-recorded and added some layers of color. And I'm also going to just ask you to think about the phrase, I see you, and I see myself in you. I see you is a direct translation of a kind of greeting in many African cultures. You don't say hi, you say, I see you, which I think is beautiful. And so if you listen to the music of Philip Glass, it's about a 3-minute excerpt from Metamorphosa. I hope that you can lean into that text, I see you, which is actually the melody that I lifted from the theme to Avatar. So. I see you.
All right, your cards also bear a number. And I'd like all the ones, if you will raise your hands. All right, all the ones I'd like to have moved to this place in this section. And all the twos, raise your hands. They will stay where you are, and all the threes will move then to the back of the center section. All the fours will be over in this section. Turn your chairs as you need to so that you can see one another and converse with one another. And it's a good way to get to know folks if you don't. Pardon?
Get out of my...
Pardon? Yes, twos are in front, threes in the back, center section. Fours are over here. Now, you are not, you're two lined up. Sort of rotate yourselves. Very good. Shh. Let's quiet now. Quiet. Those of you who are with us on Zoom can respond in the chat to your thoughts, as to your thoughts, because we would love to have included the Zoom people in a group, but it technically is just super difficult. So, you will be allotted 8 minutes for your general discussion and 2 minutes for a report. Now, that report will be given by a person you select from your group to act as the reporter, providing a summary of what the discussion amounted to. So I have a couple of guide questions. What did you feel when hearing this poem? Why do you think the poem evokes that feeling from you? So it's a what and a why. Is there anything you feel is missing from this poem's statement? And what is another here, last one. What did you find in the poem to be unexpected? Now, I had not anticipated the poem would be up there for you to refer to. I'm glad. All right, you can have a discussion among yourselves with those guides.
11 minutes later.
Hi. Group 1 had a strong response to the theme of acceptance and unity and shared similarities, and went even deeper in terms of what might have been missing to notice that we all have the same blood, we all have this, we breathe the same air. So we came to those conclusions. It was also an idea that we wondered if she learned something from this, from writing it at the age of 16. And we were also struck by the opening of the poem that she chose to start with the phrase, "He prayed." And there was also the observation that there's a physical act in here, "He took my hand," which was a potent thing.
change is possible, change can happen, and that we all share common experience. That was what our group took away from it.
Group 2, and if things have been brought up, you can mention them, but if it's possible, new ideas.
Is this one? Oh, okay. It's hot. All right. So group 2, our conversation focused on a lot of the same kinds of themes, I think, but in terms of what struck us about the poem is just the return at the end to common humanity, and how some of the things in the beginning could be thought of as more mutable or changeable, but at the end there's really those things that kind of unite us all as humans. I think a couple of quotes that I pulled out of our discussion, which I just really resonated with me, is someone had said the poem kind of says it's okay to just be. I really liked that. And then also just that fear is something that's learned. We sort of play on the playground as 2-year-olds, and we feed each other dirt and, push each other around, but everything is okay, and we're all best friends, and we kind of learn differently as time goes by. One thing also just that popped up in our conversation that maybe was something missing was just the setting of the home was left ambiguous, and it sort of all left us to go different places with that. So that was our discussion.
Group 3.
Yes.
Okay. First of all, we didn't really stay on track with each question, so some of these might not seem consistent, but as far as the first one, what did you feel? The word I think that was generally accepted was hopeful, and it was also one that I felt, and I thought to myself, why did I feel that? It was because growing up, there was, first of all, not even any awareness that those differences shouldn't be there, but certainly no hope that things were ever going to change. And within the context of that question, the group talked about the discussion of connections and how she looked first at the differences and brought it through to the things that actually connect us. And a couple of us made the observation that the negative aspect of the differences were all essentially about physical outward things, where the latter two were about emotions or internal types of things, the things that were like. I scribbled different notes, different internal or like. And the group felt that while she listed lots of differences and moved to the things that were like, which was what made us hopeful, we were kind of looking for more. Where are more of these things that make us like and make us not have to feel different? And that sort of addressed what was missing to us, was seeing more of the things so we can grasp and get a feeling for many other things besides just laughter and, what was the other one? Right, okay. I think that pretty much covers what we were looking at. Like I said, it didn't stay strictly within the questions.
Thank you.
Okay, let's start.
Okay, for group 4, under the what, feelings of calm, belonging, peace, the essence of who we really should be, connection, the acceptance of diversity, and the mutual humanity with coming with the crying and the laughing. In terms of why, the poet had a real way with words. And the language she used was simple, but yet very relatable and memorable. We also thought that it was much more powerful having the poem read as opposed to just reading it. In terms of what was missing, celebration and what happens next. Okay, now that we've made those connections, what are the next steps? And in terms of the unexpected, holy cow, she was 16. So.
Thank you very much. And now we have a few responses from the chat.
I don't know how big that group was, but there's a lot there, obviously. I won't read them all. I'll try to skim through and try to catch on some things that were a little different. Gentleman named David says, I suppose the context of Father's Day, the poem is about spiritual fatherhood. Let me see here. The poem as a whole made me think of adoption. Here's one about something missing. The only thing missing is he loves as I love. He hurts as I hurt. All right, I think I'll let it go at that. There's a lot there. Good group there, folks, on Zoom. Thank you.
And now I know it's going to be turmoil, anticipated. All right, if you could take your chairs and kind of put them back the way they were.
This is for everyone whose voice has been silenced.
Here comes a wave meant to wash me away, a tide that is taking me under, swallowing sand, left with nothing to say, my voice drowned out in the thunder, but I won't cry, and I won't start to crumble, whenever they try to shut me and let me down. I won't be silenced. You can't keep me quiet. Won't try
will now extinguish the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Let us bless fathers and father figures, just as we have honored mothers, mother figures, and our teachers here at UUC York. Let us nourish ourselves as we endeavor to listen deeply, to hear what people around us are really saying, going beyond the basic verbiage and trying to understand where the thoughts, the fears or concerns, or seemingly unconventional ideas are coming from. What is the bigger story from which these emerge? Parents who practice this way of communicating have a better chance of building a strong family. Likewise, this way of communicating is what we here strive for, to build a more colorful and beloved community. Our worship today inspires us to practice our faith again and again. I encourage you to take your selected phrases home, hear them again, and reflect on them. And recalling our second activity, perhaps you will find it a useful tool as you endeavor to listen to anyone, young or old, with more understanding and compassionate ears. In doing so, each one of us can be that mother or father or that teacher. Blessed be.